Welcome to the Eat This Book podcast. I'm Michael Whitworth. Each day we take a small piece of scripture and we sit with it. Not a quick snack that disappears before lunch, not a chore you check off of a list, but rather a meal meant to be savored. So pull up a chair. Let's eat. They wanted to reach heaven. That was the project. A tower with its top in the heavens. A structure so tall it would pierce the sky. A human achievement that would bridge the gap between earth and the realm of God. They made bricks. They burned them thoroughly. They gathered bitumen for mortar. They organized. They planned. They built. The whole earth working together. One language, one vision, one goal. Up. And then verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower. Came down. Do you feel the irony? They're building a tower to reach heaven. They're stretching toward the sky with everything they have, and God has to come down to see it. The tower that was supposed to breach the heavens doesn't even register from where God sits. It's so small, so insignificant, that God has to descend just to get a look. Like a parent bending down to inspect a child's Lego creation. Like a giant squinting at an anthill. This is holy sarcasm, divine irony. The text is mocking the arrogance of Babel by showing how tiny it looks from heaven's perspective. We think our towers are impressive. Every generation builds its own Babel. The empires of Babylon, Persia, Rome, the cathedrals of the Middle Ages, the skyscrapers of the modern world, the tech platforms that promise to connect everyone and everything, the achievements we point to and say, look what we've done, look how high we've reached. And God comes down to see. Not because he's curious, not because he's threatened, because from where he sits, our greatest achievements are barely visible. Our towers that scrape the sky don't even scratch the floor of heaven. This isn't meant to crush us, it's meant to locate us. We are not God. We are not close to God. The distance between earth and heaven isn't measured in cubits or feet, it's measured in kind. We are creatures. He is creator. We are finite. He is infinite. We are dust with breath. He is the one who breathes. The Tower of Babel was an attempt to close that gap on human terms, to climb our way to significance, to engineer our way to the divine, and God came down, because the gap isn't closable from our side. Look at what motivated the project. Verse 4 of Genesis chapter 11. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. Three things are happening here. First, let us make a name for ourselves. This is about glory, reputation, legacy. They want to be remembered. They want their achievement to echo through history. They're not building for God, they're building for themselves. Second, with its top in the heavens. This is about access, reaching God's realm, breaching the boundary between human and divine. It's the same impulse as Eden. You will be like God, now expressed in architecture. Third, lest we be dispersed. This is about security, fear. God had commanded humanity to fill the earth, to spread out, to scatter and multiply, but they don't want to scatter. They want to huddle. They want to stay together, consolidate power, protect themselves. The tower is a monument to human glory, human ambition, and human fear, all wrapped in one. And notice, God doesn't just observe, he acts. Verses 6 and 7, Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. This is a strange statement. It almost sounds like God is worried, like he's threatened by human potential. Nothing will be impossible for them. Isn't that a good thing? But look closer. The issue isn't human capability. The issue is human capability united in rebellion. Unity isn't always good. Cooperation isn't always virtuous. When the whole earth comes together to defy God, that unity becomes dangerous. Not to God, but to humanity. United rebellion accelerates the fall. Collective sin compounds the damage. God scatters them not because he's afraid of competition, but because he's merciful. He's slowing down the spiral. He's putting the friction into the system. A humanity united against God will destroy itself faster than a humanity divided. Come, let us go down. There's that phrase again, let us. We heard it in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Let us make man in our image. The divine council, the Trinity in deliberation. And now, at Babel, the same phrase, let us go down. God responding to humanity's let us build with his own let us descend. They said, come, let us build. God said, come, let us go down. Their project was about climbing. God's response is about descending, and God's descent always wins. The result is confusion. Verse 9, therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. Babel. In Hebrew, it sounds like the word balal, which means to confuse or to mix. The Babylonians thought their city name meant Gate of the Gods, Bab-ili, but Genesis gives it a different meaning. Babel doesn't mean Gate of the Gods, it means confusion. The city that was supposed to make a name for itself got a name that means Babel. The tower that was supposed to unify humanity became the symbol of division. They wanted to be remembered, and they are, as a cautionary tale. And God dispersed them. Verse 8, so the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. The very thing they feared, being scattered over the face of the earth, happened, not as tragedy, but as judgment, not as accident, but as divine action. But here's the thing. Being dispersed was always the plan. God told Noah, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Fill the earth. Spread out. Scatter. That was the command. Babel was an act of defiance. We won't scatter. We'll consolidate. And God's judgment was simply enforcing what he'd commanded all along. Sometimes God's judgment is giving us what we should have chosen in the first place. The story of Babel is the last act of the primeval history. After this, Genesis narrows. The camera zooms in from humanity as a whole to one family, Abraham's family. The 70 nations have scattered. Now God will call one man through whom all the nations will be blessed. Babel is the problem. Abraham is the beginning of the solution. Humanity tried to reach heaven by building. God will reach humanity by descending. The tower failed, but one day God himself will come down, not to judge, but to save, not to scatter, but to gather. And what Babel broke, Pentecost will heal. In Acts 2, the Spirit descends on the disciples, and they speak in tongues, and people from every nation hear them in their own languages. The confusion of Babel is reversed. The scattering begins to be undone. The nations start coming home. Babel is the story of humanity trying to reach up. Pentecost is the story of God coming down. So here's what Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 through 9 would have us savor today. If you've been building your own tower, climbing towards significance, constructing a legacy, trying to make a name for yourself, this passage says, look up. Or rather, look at how God looks down. Your tower is smaller than you think. Your reach is shorter than you imagine. The gap between you and heaven won't be closed by your effort. If you've been part of a unity that's aimed in the wrong direction, a movement, a project, a collective ambition that leaves God out, this passage says that kind of unity leads to confusion. Not all togetherness is good. What matters is what you're together for. And if you felt scattered, confused, divided, unable to communicate, far from where you started, this passage says God is not done. Babel scattered the nations, but the story doesn't end at Babel. It ends with a multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and language standing before the throne. The Lord came down at Babel to confuse. One day the Lord came down at Bethlehem to save. They built a tower to reach the heavens. God came down to see it. And in that descent, in that holy irony, the whole project was exposed. small, futile, reaching for a height it could never attain. But God keeps coming down. That's the story of the Bible. We can't climb to Him, so He descends to us. Next time on Eat This Book, after Babel, the story narrows. From a scattered world, God zooms in on one family, Abram's. The promise rests on an impossible problem. Sarai is barren. Join me in Genesis 11 as God funnels the rescue of the nations through one fragile line. Thanks for eating with me. Until next time, may the Word dwell in you richly.